I asked my ring back, which she didn't want to give back, but eventually did. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Ara Zone Stories. Today we have a story where this man stopped the wedding event when he caught his fiancé with another man. It's a complete story. Let's see how this story ended. I had dated a girl for about a year and almost immediately got serious and started talking about married. That was actually all she talked about. How much she loved me, how she couldn't wait to get married, how many kids we were going to have, etc. We did have some challenges in our relationship because we lived about 45-minute to an hour drive from each other. She was still living at home, trying to finish up school, and I was sharing a small apartment with a friend. So, we would only see each other on the weekends and very rarely during the week. But we talked for hours every day on the phone. So that is how we built our relationship. There were warning signs in the time we were dating, but it really got bad after we got engaged. In order to save money for a house, we decided I would move back in with my parents. So I did. We were supposed to open a joint bank account and put as much money aside as we could. But even though we agreed to it before we got engaged, she would blow it off whenever I suggested it. That became a pattern for any time we had to make life decisions together, she would just blow it off. I also started catching her in lies or inconsistencies more and more. Instead of looking for reasons to be with me, she would come up with bizarre reasons as to why she couldn't hang out on a particular day. As more time went on, the more I felt I made a huge mistake. It was clear I wasn't a priority to her and didn't think we could have a healthy marriage with the lack of trust I had. When I expressed my misgivings, she would always break down in tears, telling me how much she loved me, couldn't bear to be without me, and didn't know why she did some of the things she did, etc. So that is the backstory, and this is how I found out about her cheating. Back then I used to go to the gym avidly. I always went by myself, but over time befriended a guy there. He would work out by himself too, and we got to chatting and started working out together whenever the two of us were there. He was a really nice guy, my age, really good personality, and I got along with him really well. We will call him Brad. After a while, one of Brad's friends would show up to work out with us. Let's call him Chris. He lived on the other side of town, but he would come see his parents that lived in our town, and he would work out with us on an occasional Friday or Saturday. My impression of Chris was that he didn't have much of a personality, and I didn't really see how Brad and him were friends. Chris was really quiet, never started a conversation, and only gave you short answers when you tried to talk to him. He did come off as arrogant, and beyond spotting him when we worked out, I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with him. So, one Saturday morning as we are working out, Brad tells me he is going to have friends over his house to watch a big boxing match, and knowing I was a boxing fan, asked me if I wanted to come by. I had spoken to my fiancé earlier in the week, and she told me that she had to go shopping with her mom all Saturday, and then go see her cousin who was in from out of town. So, not having any plans, I thanked him for the invite, and told him I will be there. This was before GPS, so I had some trouble finding his house, but when I finally got there, I could see a bunch of cars in his driveway, so I find a place to park down the street, and I am about to get out of the car, when I see a couple getting out of another car parked in front of Brad's house. I immediately recognize that it is Chris, and then I look over at the girl, and the best way I can describe it is that I had like a Matrix moment. It was like everything was in slow motion, and like something that shouldn't be there just dropped out of the sky. You guessed it, the girl he was with was my fiancé. I saw her grab his hand, caress him and look up at him with puppy dog eyes, before they turned and walked to the house. After I got over the shock, I laughed. I wasn't mad or heartbroken, I was relieved. It all made sense to me now, and I felt I didn't have to play the charade any longer, because I already knew the engagement had been a mistake and was over. My first impulse was to just drive away. I had never been to Brad's house and never met his wife, and the last thing I wanted to do was cause any type of scene there. But then thinking a little longer about it, I thought this opportunity was too good to pass up, and honestly, I didn't feel any anger, so I knew I wouldn't be the one causing a scene. So, I walk in and am greeted by Brad and his wife, and then walk into the kitchen where my fiancé is sitting with Chris. I will never forget the look on her face when she saw me, mouth dropped open, eyes as big as saucers. Once she got over the initial shock, I could see her hands shaking. I causally said hi to everyone, and even told her it was nice to meet her when Brad introduced me to her. She went to the bathroom, I am sure to regroup. And when she came out, I tried to make a point of being around her and just laughed inside as I watched her squirm the whole night. She was less affectionate with Chris than what I saw in the driveway, but he would call her babe and pat her back a few times during the night. At one point, while we were watching the fight, Chris called her over to sit by him, and he put his arms around him to sort of cuddle with her. I found that funny too, cause she was clearly uncomfortable, but after a while, when she saw no way out of it, she actually did start cuddling up to him and had her head on his shoulders like an affectionate GF. I asked Chris how long they were dating in front of her, and he said about 2 months, and we had been engaged for 3 months at this time. I think I might have visibly shook my head at that lol. Brad's wife even mentioned how the 4 of them went out to dinner the week before, when my fiancé told me she was out with her friend who was having a hard time. Chris and she left as soon as the fight was over, and I drove home shortly after. Next day, she calls me and tells me we have to talk, and then proceeds to make one ridiculous excuse after another. It's not what it looked like, I am not dating him. Tells me he is actually a friend of someone her friend Sandy likes, and that is how she met him. She only hangs around him. Cause Sandy needed someone with her when she would go out with the guy she liked. Cause Sandy doesn't date much, and she was supposed to go to Brad's house, so Sandy could have someone to hang out with. But Sandy got sick and couldn't go, and my fiancé didn't want to be rude. When I asked about all the back-grabbing stuff, she said it is just Chris' way on being funny, and she never thought he meant anything by it. And even said he knows not to touch me in the front, as if he is going to finger her in front of everyone. When I brought up the dinner date, Brad's wife said they were together. She claimed she had no idea what I was talking about, and that she must have gotten her mixed up with someone else. It was really a comedy. I told her that I wasn't mad, it is her life, and since we aren't going to be engaged any longer, she can do what she wants. I actually told her good luck, asked for my ring back, which she didn't want to give back, but eventually did. And that was it. Still makes me smile when I think about it. Edit. I was having too much fun seeing her squirm to say anything, and I had too much respect for Brad to make anything uncomfortable for him and his wife after they were nice enough to host the fight and invite me over. I think what is hard for a lot of people to understand is that it wasn't a life-shattering moment for me. Most people post on here because it was a truly devastating moment and can sympathize with that. But in this instance, she lied and done so many disrespectful things to that point that I was already checked out emotionally from the relationship. I was to the point where I could barely stand being around her. The only thing that kept me hanging on was some misguided sense of duty, because I keep telling myself, no one put a gun to your head to get engaged. So despite knowing it was all a mistake, I felt I had to give it every chance I could. That is why it was such a relief when I saw her with him. There was no more wiggle room. Over and done. I never even raised my voice the next day when she was making those ridiculous excuses. I was just laughing at how pathetic it was. As for her and Chris, for some reason they broke up shortly after that. Not sure why. I would most likely have told Brad to tell Chris, because I barely had a friendship with Chris, that he should be careful with her if they dated longer. I just thought it would have been the ultimate opportunity to put her in her place, and the ultimate takedown in that situation. I think it was definitely warranted after what she had done. He should spoke to Chris to get him up to speed on the situation without causing any conflict. The week of Thanksgiving, I discovered my husband of 22 years was having an affair. I had seen a few unexplained signs over the previous couple of months, so I checked his text history, really just to put my mind at ease, and it was all there. Expressions of love, pet names, planning for meetups, and complaints about our relationship. And that was just in the previous 24 hours. When I confronted him with what I knew, he admitted that he was having an affair, and when questioned said it had been going on since February 2020. That's a year and 9 months. I was blown away. She was a coworker that I knew he was friends with, but I trusted him and never dreamed he'd cross that line. After the confrontation, he went to see her and told me he ended it because he only ever wanted to be with me. He claimed he was only with her because she made him feel wanted. The thing is, during the affair he was acting at home like he wanted to rekindle our romance now that the kids are away at college. We were going out on dates and making more time for each other. But in his texts, he told her we were living like roommates. I've never done stuff like that with roommates. So, basically, he was dating us both at the same time. I didn't really believe the affair was over, so I tracked him using Find My iPhone, and for the next 3 weeks, he kept seeing her. The weekend before Christmas, he spent both Friday and Saturday evenings with her on full-blown dinner and a show dates. One of them is a double date with another coworker. On Sunday morning, when he went out on a supposed errand and made a beeline for her place, I finally revealed that I knew all. So, he broke up with her again. Allegedly, it took a 5-hour meeting to end it because they had a lot to talk about. And now he's insisting he wants to work through this and put our marriage back together. When I point out that he was dating her as of 2 weeks ago, he claims that those meetings were no big deal because they didn't have bedroom activity and the relationship was actually winding down of its own accord. He claimed they were mostly talking through their own relationship problems. The texts I saw 3 weeks earlier did not look like anything was ending. So, I am now trying to figure out what to do. He does seem sincere about wanting to fix this, and he has offered to go to counseling. He tells me constantly how much he loves me, and that I'm his whole world, and I think he means it. I also haven't caught him meeting with her, and he's being careful to account for his whereabouts. However, I feel completely alienated from him. I can barely look him in the eye. I don't want him to touch me, and I feel like I will never trust him again. The only thing that has kept me from leaving or kicking him out is that I don't want to break his heart. Yes, you read that right. I am so stuck right now. Today is the 1-year anniversary of my D-Day. It's turned out to be a series of mini anniversaries as I keep thinking. 1 year ago at this very moment, X was happening. Here's the update. After confronting my husband of 22 years with hard evidence of a nearly 2-year affair, he claimed he would break it off and only wanted me. He then backslid repeatedly over the next 6 weeks. I was checking his text messages and tracking his phone, and I would periodically reconfront him. He would cry and panic and repeat the claim he was ending the affair only to continue seeing her and texting her that he was ready to commit. In early January, I found yet another text exchange in which he was not only committing to her, but also being accused by her of seeing a third woman. I snapped and blew up the whole thing. I exchanged texts with her using his account. I was clear from the first text that it was I and not wayward spouse texting. She was somewhat remorseful and filled in some blanks for me on the situation. He was furious with me, but I was done. I told him I wanted out. Fast forwarding through the rest of the year, we sold our house in March, officially separated in April, and started divorce proceedings yesterday. His affair died of its own accord in early summer. He has since said he really misjudged her, but that changes nothing. I'm actually doing remarkably well. I was an emotional wreck through the winter and until I moved into my own place. My new home is a safe space, and I feel like I get stronger with each passing month. Individual counseling has helped a lot, as has the support of our 2 grown daughters who are 100% team mom. The one area of lasting damage is my ability to imagine a relationship in which I'm not being lied to constantly. I'm not sure I can trust again, but at least I now know I can be happy and secure on my own. It's one of the hardest things a person can go through, and she's navigating it like a champ. Her ability to trust will start to return. Perhaps not 100%, maybe 90%, but a lot will come back and there are plenty of decent guys out there. Please don't give up on love. Hopefully he was not always this way, but the reality is those extremely selfish cheater traits probably existed. And you may have ignored the red flags and even enabled his behavior. Don't take that comment too harsh. That can happen in a long-term relationship is codependent behavior. Look for love, and if you keep good boundaries and have self-love and respect, you stand a good chance of finding a true equal love.